is, right, listen, we'll get to some of the other aspects about top later, but the player who was the worst, listen, obviously, by definition, the worst player was the Yuyanjia guy, because he's always been the worst. Like, but that was known already. Like, that was something they could actually live with and still be a favorite for Worlds. Nobody, and I'm talking nobody, could have anticipated this fucking playoffs from JackeyLove. Like, this was absurdly bad. Because people don't get it. I was one of the people, I made a video last year where he was on IG, where I said, people are overrating this guy on this level, which is, if you're the guy who plays with Lucky and the Shy, and they smash their lanes, you can tell me stuff like, but I was pushing them out. Like, that doesn't matter, mate. They are magnets drawing people to them and drawing fights to them. Like, in that scenario, you are reckless in season 4. You are chilling, watching people win the game and going, shall I help? No, he's got it. Actually, I can leave him and do that. Like, you don't have to carry every... So then, when you do get a game that you carry and you look fucking sick, all the fans go, see, he's the best as well. And I was always like, whoa, 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 whoa. If you're comparing him to other AD carries and you play in a region with Uzi I, who Uzi I is the opposite. Uzi I in this analogy is the forgiven to the reckless. He's like, every game is on my back. Give me my champion. I'm going to 1v9. The difference is JackeyLove never had to do that. So now when he comes into this team, and he had a great impact on TS the whole year, if you've ever watched any of those voice comms, he shot calls the fucking team fights. I personally believe the only reason he keeps the Yu Yanjia guy in and makes... The reason I think they do those shit drafts with Tom Kench is just because he tells the Yuyanjia guy, like, I'll tell you when to swallow me every time. Like, right, swallow me, not swallow me. Like, that's just like his fucking, like, get out. That's like his parachute to jump out of the plane. Like, he doesn't actually think that's a good pick or that's a good player. Like, it's just a little bot that he has. Mate, this guy threw so many fucking games in this series. It was unbelievable. The whole playoffs, he was... And so I know he has the talent to maybe be the best AD carry ever. His peaks look insane, but they didn't show up in these playoffs almost at all. Like, where do you come on this, Jensen? Because, like I said, there's plenty of problems with top we can get into, but that one was really glaring to me. Like, it's one thing if you didn't, like, outperform the other guy. He was, like, actively, like, a detriment at times, it felt like.
I think it's also kind of the way that the meta has evolved a little bit throughout the World Championship, where at the start it's all about, okay, bot lane priority is like super, super important, right? Because you want to be playing for the early Drakes, you want to be stacking the early Drakes, and the team that stacks the Drakes early tends to win. But as we saw in this series, and I think people are talking about it as well, is the curse of soul point, right? You get a soul point, and all of a sudden you find yourself getting outskilled, and people are starting to adapt to this meta as well, and they're going for the scaling team fight compositions, where it's a lot more important to secure the level 13 on your Ornn or your Gangplank or whichever scaling pick that you select in the top lane, and then be able to set up for them to win in these team fights, right? Like in the scenario in the first game where we had the Wukong against the Jace. And once you're playing for these type of scenarios, use the ability to push out bot lane to control the Drake, the ability to push out bot lane to contest for the Rift Herald, it goes down by a lot. So I think that's the change that happened as well, which is why we didn't see as big of a emphasis on being able to win bot lane, and that being such a big factor in the games itself.
I mean, I think some of these games, like, so first off, I have to preface this. I've never particularly liked JackeyLove as a player. He's
I mean, by the way, if people don't get it, Monty doesn't particularly like players that are really wild and just go too aggressive, right? Like, you like a more controlled style.
I like it more consistency, because I think it's hard to build a team style if you have super variant abilities within your own team.
Especially from AD carry, for one player. Like, you know, if we're picking one role, let's not have the AD carry be a guy who's just going all in, you know?
Especially like when you're ahead. I mean, it was kind of hilarious to watch him just like going over on Ezreal, just going over the dragon pit and just like straight inting into Suning, even in the game that top won in this series. I would be incredibly angry if I was his coach and saw that, considering the game state at the time and the fact that you really didn't want Suning to have any chance of getting back into that. And it just is completely unnecessary to make those kind of hero plays. And so my problem with having super high skill players that do have this level of variance is it's like you have to really hope that either, in the case of when he was on IG, his solo lanes are just so incredibly strong that they can just carry no matter what he's doing in that bottom lane, and maybe you get some sick highlights sometimes, but it doesn't really matter overall. In which case, like, why not just get a normal AD carry?
Because it's IG, to be fair, so whatever.
It's not as cool, I guess. It's not as cool. You don't get
Sure.
the style points. But the problem is that when you are relying on this player to carry you, or then you get into this problem where some games he will, but some games he'll also just like totally tank it for your team. And what that does is it means you have to really roll the dice and say, okay, this guy is going to have the most insane tournament of his career where he never ints and he's just going to be at his peak the entire time. And that's the way we win worlds. Now, if I have a team with the skill level of top esports, I don't want to fucking roll those dice, dude. I've already got Knight and Karsa and 369. Like, I don't need this guy just doing weird shit in my lane and randomly losing the 2v2 in game 3. Because, I mean, Knight's best game of this series was probably game 3, where he was like popping off on the Echo. And I felt terrible for him because he's just trying to do damage control on this map where his side lanes were both just dying for no reason.
Same with Karsa as well, by the way. Karsa was in a fucking nightmare simulator right now playing this series. It's like, that's like playing solo queue when you're the jungler. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to put 3 fires out at once? Like, this is mental. No, I agree, Monty. Like, that was a great, you actually phrased it the best way. Like, why are you making hero plays that you don't have to? I think in general, one thing about top for me was there was sometimes times where you could tell pressure got to them because it's like, dude, you could just like calm down 10% and these games are all winnable. Like, why are you overreacting to this shit? Because it's like this classic quote, right, from back in the day when Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal used to play together. And there was obviously famously a very big power dynamic, right, which is because Shaquille O'Neal was in theory the best player in the whole NBA. His logic was like, let me be the one who's like the primary carry, as it were, and you can just be the secondary carry. And obviously the whole dynamic was Kobe Bryant was like, well, actually, I secretly could be the guy. And they were in this whole thing. So one time in the media, right, Shaq just said, the problem with Kobe is he kept trying to be a hero, and a hero ate nothing but a sandwich. And what he means by that is, like, in America, they call like a long sandwich like a hero, right? But his point that he was making is an apt one, which is you don't try to be a hero. Like, if you think it's like a movie every time, like, you're going to fuck the game up. It's like you're a hero when the moment presents itself and you embrace it. You don't, like, create the heroic moment every game. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole bunch of times where you're going to look like an idiot, aren't you?
That would be like Superman, like, lighting a skyscraper on fire and then saving people.
No, basically, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, you wait for the skyscraper to be on fire and then you save the people.
Yes.
You don't cause the disaster that you save people from. And that's a good point. That's like what I feel like when I watch JackeyLove, and it just pisses me off, honestly. I know people love him and they think he's great, and I appreciate that you're looking at those top moments, but just for me, like, I just fucking hate watching him play. And the other side of this too is this Huanfeng guy who's new this year, who I love watching play. I'm all into this guy. Not only from the awesome rags to riches, like, human interest angle that he has. I think it's really cool that people are telling that story, but I just love his like very calculated, controlled play. Yes. I love the way he plays Jhin. It's so smart. And Jhin is just a champion that is so wildly different from any other champion in League of Legends. It's one of my favorite champions in terms of design. And you can do so much with his kit if you are really thinking about how to use it from you don't even, it's one of those 80 carries where you can do damage, but also the itemization like changes him so fundamentally, because when you start to get items, he starts to move a lot faster because he'll start proccing his crit. And when you have like the new rune system, the runes of mastery system with the fleet footwork, it makes him this very interesting champ that kind of like weaves in and out of battle. And like knowing when to use your ult effectively is very hard, because if you use it at the start of the fight, you can cause CC and some chip damage, but it doesn't do as much damage if champions have full health. So there's all these kind of different things that have to go on in your brain when you're playing Jhin. And the way you play him changes a lot when you get 2 items, when you get 3 items into the game. And so when I watch Huanfeng, I'm really impressed by the decisions that he makes, especially on these very hard to play champions that change so much from minute 1 until minute 30 in the game.
What do you think, Jensen?
Yeah, I think that Huanfeng, he has shown some weaknesses in the laning phase as well. But as much as we want to rag on JackeyLove, I think that Yuanxia is. I mean, we talked about Yuanxia earlier, like being and quite a trash can. I think that in the playoff series as a whole, I'm just looking at the way they're playing things and the way that they're setting up in the 2v2s as well. He's playing Karma, he's sitting in the bush. You've got no. That's what you do when you're playing a champion like Trash and Nautilus, because you want to represent your hook threat, right? But he's playing Karma, he's sitting in the bush, where you should be just stepping forward up with your AD carry every time that there's a minion dying. You threaten trades from 2 characters at the same time, and it just feels that this guy's laning really isn't quite there. And I have to wonder how much of this is also affecting JackeyLove. And with regards to the whole hero play thing, could this be also like the thing that you guys talked about, because it's LPL versus LPL, they 3-0 them last time, and when that 3-0 happened, when Tess beat Suning in the semifinals, it was from bot lane gap, right? Two out of the 3 games was them just absolutely smashing the living shit out of Funfeng and Sword Art in the bot lane. So they might have bought in a little bit into that of hubris, like, okay, we did this the last time, we're going to do the same thing this time, but they didn't have the understanding as to how to replicate what they did the first time around, and they just said, okay, we have the confidence, we're better than them. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to trust that I'm going to be able to outskill them, but that's not how the game works.